right. This going live thing is interesting, I will say, because it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to.
Yeah.
But this going live thing is interesting, I will say, because it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to. So there's a lag. But going live thing is interesting, I will say, because it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to. So there's a lag. Okay, so now I can see us on YouTube, which is great, and which means we can get back to our interview, which is great.
Sure.
Okay, so Micheal, if you could start out by just introducing yourself, and I will then ask you some questions, and we'll have a conversation about your farm and the potential for tourism around that property, and similar to some of the conversations we've already had, but we'll go a little bit more in depth as a way to illustrate the opportunities for people, because we may have people that watch this from Ghana, from West Africa, from Puerto Rico, who knows? So why don't you introduce yourself first?
Okay, so I would say my name is Micheal Annan. I live here. I'm a Ghanaian who stays here and work here in the United States. I work with the Ghana Mission, but I am a farmer, and that is what my passion is driven towards. So I'm a farmer, but I live here in US here.
Fantastic. And how long have you been a farmer? Has that been the family property, or how did it all start?
Okay, so I've long nurtured a passion for farming. I think over years now. I remember my first farm was at a very tender age. I think I took that trade from family. I grew up in a community where majority of the people are farmers, and I've always watched them and studied them, and I've been growing to see how best we can improve upon it and do it better. So that's where my passion started from. So I think right after over years now. So I started with an animal farm where I had my some few goats, one or two goats I started rearing, and it was beautiful. So that's where the passion grew from.
Great. Yeah. So at this point, I really want to get some real detail about the farm so that we can have that full conversation. Okay. Can you start out by telling us where it is approximately? You don't have to give the exact address because you don't want people showing up, I guess. And then go into some detail about what is on the farm, animals, crops, etc.
Okay, so currently we are on about over 60 acres of farm currently, and we are producing coconut. That's the largest stuff we're doing. But aside that, we have other crops too on the land. We are cultivating maize, and we are cultivating pineapple. We are cultivating cassava too as well. And aside that, we have the animal husbandry where we do sheep, goats, cattle too as well. We're looking for it to grow. So we are starting, but we believe in organic growth. So we're starting to learn on the field to grow gradually too as well.
Okay, great. So how is everything set up? Is everything all in one centralized space, or is it spread out amongst the 60 acres?
Okay, so currently we are running everything on the 60 acres land, right? Okay. So we started cultivating gradually. So we started from about, we started with about 10 acres to cultivate the 10 acres, after which we moved to other acres. But the animal husbandry is covering about 5 acres of the land. Yeah, so we have the animals on that 5 acre, and the rest of the acres are all crop plants. But our strength is coconut. We want to grow coconut. That particular space is for coconut farming. So we're looking for it to grow into something else, but maybe we acquire other acres of land too for that.
Okay. So do you the feed for the animals, does that come primarily from what you grow on the acres?
Okay, so we feed the animals from what we grow from the acres, right? From the acres. So I told you earlier that we have coconut, we have the maize farm and the cassava as well. So we feed the animals from what we plant to as well. And
Okay.
we also get extra food outside. The other foods that we feed them with that we don't get from the farm. We give them proper nutrition. So we have like fish meal that we get outside the farm, and we feed them with them too as well.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
And in terms of the animals, can you give us a little bit more detail, like how many of what, and what kind of animals are we talking?
Okay, so we're doing cattle as in cow. So we currently have over 60 cows on the farm now. And with the sheep, we have, if I'm not wrong, we have over 120 sheep on the farm currently. So what
100.
we are doing, 120.
Okay, great.
Okay. So we are trying to do we are currently breeding, right? We want to produce a proper breed, right? So we are also doing breeding as well, where we can give people a proper breed to cross what they have to produce a proper yield as well. So we are doing breeding currently. We're also rearing for meat as well.
Okay. Um, okay, good. Is there any water that runs on the property?
Okay, so we are very fortunate we have a source of water on the property. But aside that too, we have a well dug. We have a well.
Okay.
We dug a well on the farm where we use that to feed the animals. And with the other farms, um, crop the crop farm, that's the maize. We do the irrigation system. So we have the water from the pond. We have a little pond there that we use in the dry season to water the plants too as well.
Great. Yeah, I was going to ask about the irrigation. So now we'll take we'll go into the direction of tourism. Okay, so um, from Accra, for instance, what what is the amount of time that it would take for somebody to be driven from Accra to your farm, approximately?
Okay, so with traffic and all that, I should think um not over, or maybe a little bit over an hour. So let's say an hour, 15 minutes should take you there.
Okay, it's
Maximum.
not bad.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
maximum an hour, 15 minutes should take you there.
That's actually the distance from my house to New York City.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
hour and 15.
Yeah, so not too far.
Did it last night.
Mhm,
Okay, so good. So that's a reasonable amount of time.
mhm.
That's not something that would be too long. I think some of the trips in Ghana, when you're trying to get to different places, can be a little bit
And it's longer.
difficult. So that's not an issue. Is it something where someone could take either a VIP bus or one of the buses close to the farm? Does it get pretty close? Do those public buses get pretty close?
Okay, so I think there's a transport system that will take you to a point
Hmm.
that you have to transport yourself from that point to the farm. It's a little bit kind of, as a farming community, so it's a little bit remote. So
Okay.
you can get a transport from one point to the other, but when you get to the junction that leads to the farm, there are other transport system that can take you to the farm too as well.
Okay. Great.
So it's
Yeah.
not that difficult to locate. It's in
Okay.
the central region, after Bojuase. So I don't know, from Kaswa, it leads you to Bojuase. From Bojuase, it leads to where the farm is. It's not too far.
Fantastic. And the reason why I ask about transportation is because this is something that we are always talking about when it comes to tourism destinations in Ghana. There are some that are very easy to get to in terms of right within Accra. If you're talking about the lighthouse in Jamestown, or if you're talking about Independence Square, any of the places within Accra are pretty easy. Cape Coast, Elmina, not too bad. Minus the traffic, depending on what you're doing. Um, but then there are other places. I love going to the monkey sanctuary near Hope,
Okay. Yeah.
and um, it's a great experience when you get there, but
Hmm.
it is a painful experience on the way there, on the way back.
Yeah. The roads are bad.
The roads are bad. I mean, it's the perfect roads for a 4x4 competition or
Hmm.
or some type of thing, but if you're trying to be comfortable, it's and I've done it many times now. It's uh, it's always a conversation that you have to have,
Hmm.
because if you're
Hmm.
trying to bring in visitors
Yeah.
from different places,
Hmm.
you don't want them to say, "Oh, it was great going to the farm, except the trip was
The
terrible."
trip was terrible.
So.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get too much into infrastructure. There's plenty of other
Hmm. Mm.
platforms that
Yeah.
address it. But
Hmm.
an hour and 15 minutes is reasonable, and if you were to have a group of four, a group of six, easily set up transportation to pick them up straight from the airport and take them straight to the farm. Um, that being said, can you talk a little bit about the accommodations that are on the farm? First off, let me take a step back. How many people do you have working on the farm that also stay on the farm?
Okay, so currently, the permanent people we have working on the farm that stay on the farm, we have about 15 people staying on the farm.
15.
15 people staying on the farm. Aside that, we have casual workers that come to work and go back, but we currently have 15 people staying on the farm with accommodation.
Okay. So do they all essentially live in one building, or is it
Uh,
smaller
okay,
buildings?
so where we have the animals, we have accommodations available for them there, and we have other side too on a distance. Let's say on that acre, far where 10 acres is, we have I think a 3 bedroom accommodation there.
Okay.
And the other side of the farm, we have a range of houses that would number up to like 5 bedrooms to available for them too as
Okay, great.
well.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then how's the electricity over there? How do you have generator? How do you work it?
So currently we use the generators there. We use a generator. We don't have lights transported all the way there, but we use generators. We always try to find a means of getting them lights over there.
Okay.
So we use generator. Currently, we've seen a kind of improvement. We see government trying to take light all the way to where the farm is. So we are hoping by the end of the year we'll see the connections going to that side, and I think it would help us a lot.
Great. And for those that are watching, or those that are watching when it's not live anymore, when it's recorded, um, they're in Ghana. Depending on where you are, electricity can be a challenge.
Hmm.
Even in the middle of a crowd, electricity can be a
Yeah,
challenge,
can be a
as
challenge.
well as water access. But we've already talked about water. It's great to have your own well,
Hmm.
because even if you're in the city or one of the cities, you don't always know when you're going to get the water, if you're going to have the water, and you're counting on having a poly tank, and
Hmm.
that can be tricky at times,
Yeah.
especially when you have a farm and you have crops and animals and people that require that water. um, Electricity is a little bit different. If you
Hmm.
it'd be great if lights, electricity gets to the
Yeah.
farm, but having a generator is good. Have you explored solar at all at this point?
We are trying to look into that. We are trying to look into that. We're
Okay.
trying to look into that. I think it will be a very good option. So we will be looking into that greatly.
Right. And there's some very creative solar options that are out there that are, we're not talking about the big panels and the big batteries and all that. There's some very simple small options which are good for individuals, or small groups of people, so that they can be placed in their
Yeah.
accommodations,
Yeah.
so that at least they can have a little bit of light in the
Hmm.
evening. But
Hmm.
I'm assuming, and you correct me, please. I'm not a farmer,
Hmm.
but actually my last name means from the field, so I guess my ancestors were farmers. But there is this idea that if you live a farming lifestyle, then you go to sleep early and you get up early. So you go to sleep when the light's out and you get up when the sun comes out. Right.
So,
And you work that full day. But it would be nice to have a little bit of electricity to do certain things. And obviously you have the generator, which is good, but to have lights so that, if people want to, read, and now I'm going to get into a little bit of the visitors, whereas maybe the staff that works there, the 15 people that are there, and then the casual workers that are there, maybe they don't need certain things at certain times. But if you want to attract tourists, they are certainly going to have expectations. Even though there is some value in saying, welcome to Ghana. And, part of this environment is that you're not always going to have the things that you expect to have. And I know that's a shock for some people. So it's there are some great things. One thing I will say about Ghana, one of the benefits of Ghana being how it is that there's a lot more flexibility in terms of DIY, do-it-yourself approaches to certain things.
Sure.
So I've met some people at Republic Bar that built their own solar
panels
at their building.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1 year, it was paid for because the amount it costs normally for electricity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
wow.
I always tell people that in some parts of Ghana, your electricity bill is more expensive than your rent.
Sometimes, yes.
If I think about the rent in New York City, you think about the rent in New York City.
Sure.
If your electric bill was the same amount, woo, that would
you're gone. That would be terrible.
That would be terrible. So, okay, so transportation to the farm is not,
it's not so much of an issue.
No, easy. And go ahead,
because
Michael.
we have the roads to my farm are not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
The roads to my farm are not that bad because we have communities that lead to that farm. We have communities on the way to the farm. So because it's always used, so it's almost kind of in a good shape, unless maybe we have a heavy rainfall before it goes that bad. But aside that, it's not too bad currently.
Right.
Yes.
And again, the idea is that, at least in my mind, what I'm constructing in my mind, which we'll talk about shortly, is this experience for people to come in. They're not going to come in and go back and forth on the road. They're gonna come into Accra,
stay around,
right? Come to the farm, and they're gonna stay on the farm, basically.
Sure.
So it's not a matter of having a road that's you're constantly on and they're constantly getting frustrated. That's not going to be the case. They'll come in maybe once during their visit. They'll go somewhere else. But for the most part, they're going to stay where they're at. So being an hour and 15 minutes from Accra is to me a great distance. It's a perfect amount of time. I mean, 30 minutes you're basically still in Accra. Hour and 15 you're far enough outside that it's remote enough that it's a completely different world than what Accra is, or Kumasi or Cape Coast or whatever. All right, great. So accommodations wise, if, say for instance, you had two visitors that wanted to come in, and we'll talk about what those visitors look like in a moment. Right now, you don't really have the accommodations for them, right? Because that's for the 15 people that are working there, correct?
Okay, so currently we're putting up structures on the farm.
Oh.
Because we're looking into, as we spoke some time before, we're looking into agritourism, where we have people move to the farm, because the main passion is not for ourselves alone, but also to encourage the youth in Africa, in Ghana, to venture into farming, because we think farming is the future for Africa. just as other continents would boast of industrialization and technology as well. So we want to let let the world know that yes, we have potentials in farming, because our we have two seasons in Ghana. We have two seasons in Ghana. We have the rainy season and the dry season, and both season gives us good yield.
Right.
Both season, unlike maybe other continents, you have winter where you can't plant anything and stuff, right? But in our seasons, it is friendly for agriculture, and our lands are very fertile for any type of agriculture. So we're trying to, in as much as we are producing to sell, we are producing for profit. We are trying to also make it very attractive for the people in Africa, Ghana, and people of the world to come to have a feel of what agriculture is, and then in the very natural state, right? And as well as people relating to nature too as well. So we're looking at putting up structures at vantage point on the farm where people can really get to understand certain things. Not even far from that, we have people have who always want to find out how things are planted and grow, how a tomato plant looks like. People really want to connect to nature as well. So we are doing farming, yes. We also want to look at go into more like agritourism, where people would get to take a tour on agriculture. It is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to relate with nature. Gets down to feed the cow, gets to feed the sheep. You relate more with nature, and how and find out how the food you eat where it comes from.
Great.
Right.
So let's walk people through that, because this is, we've had these conversations before, uh, and this is really, for me, the great opportunity from a tourism perspective. And granted, we're going to have to set aside what the world is like right this moment, because to some extent we have to assume that there will be some return of normal, something
We'll go
normal.
back to normal.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sure.
And the nice thing about a farm is that, if you have 60 acres, you can certainly practice social distancing. So you can figure that out. With everything that you have on the farm, whether it's the produce, whether it's the animals, whether it's the irrigation, whether it's the way that electricity works in terms of the generator, the whole process, every part of the process on a farm can be turned into a tourism experience. Whether it's bringing somebody in who's just captivated about how water is used, and taking water, using it for one thing, and then taking the gray water and using that for something else. I think there are communities. We think of New York City, for instance. People, and I'd say most of the United States, most people don't recognize how lucky they are to have water out of the faucet the way that they do. And it is when I teach sustainable tourism, one of the conversations we have is, from a personal perspective, is how do you treat water? Do you waste it? Do you run the water while you're brushing your teeth? Do you, especially now when people are told to wash your hands constantly, do you turn on the water and soap up your hands while the water is running? There's no need for that. And in countries around the world, places around the world where water is very, there isn't a lot of it, they're much better at maintaining the water and using it. So you use it for one thing, and then you take it and you use it for your crops. And that's, you can create a whole experience around that for somebody to come in, a couple people to come in, call them, apprentices, call them whatever. But basically, people will pay to have a unique experience. You have individuals who will come through an academic program, so they're coming for their college or university program, because they're studying irrigation, they're studying water. For them to come in and live on the farm for a couple of weeks and experience that firsthand and help develop certain things,
Yeah.
that is an incredibly unique experience. That's something that's going to jump right off the page if, on their CV, the resume. So that in itself is a great experience. You were talking about the produce and the conversations we've had with the produce. Following from from the soil, the seed to the crop growing, and then what you do with it afterwards. Having an opportunity to learn from the 15 people that are on the farm, and maybe others that come in as casual workers, to find out how to cook some of those things. That's a full experience. Or getting on the truck that takes it to market. That entire process. I remember actually being in Kumasi a couple years ago, and I was staying at a hostel in Kumasi. It's a fantastic hostel called Tumi. Love that place.
Wow.
It's amazing. If I'll give you the info if you ever want to stay up there.
Oh, sure.
But this young lady who was staying there was very excited because she was going to visit a farm, a place where they grow cacao, and she was excited because she wanted to see the entire process, and so she was able to go and see it, firsthand. And then they break it apart, and then they show her all the,
You dry it and
it
everything.
was great. And it's what's amazing, and this is the heart of what we're talking about, is that people know their lives. They do their thing, they do their thing, they do
The
their thing.
normal stuff in life.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anything that's different is very interesting to them. I have a friend who is owns a nightclub in New York City. His name's Sean. And I always loved talking to him when I started teaching. And like, I'm looking at him like he's on top of the world. He's got this great business. He does these great things. He's got a great club. And then he's looking at me like he thinks being a professor is really, and I get it. There's these things that are different, and that is the opportunity. Something that is beautiful or something that is interesting can be packaged as a tourism attraction, as a tourism experience. And as we've talked about, and I've had this conversation with a few farmers in Ghana and Nigeria. It's about figuring out the logistics. How do you package it so they fly into Accra? You set up a car to bring them in. You have some type of accommodations for them. And what we've talked about, I know, is how can we be creative about that experience to say, okay, we're making a special thing. There are 10 people that are going to be selected, and each of you, here's the laundry list of things that you need to bring with you. Bring a mattress, that's one of those foam
foldable ones.
Right. Bring, these solar things, bring these attachments, bring these pieces. And then, it lowers the cost of their experience, but they're also helping the farm and the whole operation get a little bit better, which is really neat. But it's amazing what people will pay for. I mean, I've seen instances where people have paid tens of thousands of dollars to go and get dirty and work in different things. But that's because they have the money and they want something unique. Anybody can go and do regular tourism. Anybody can go and see the Eiffel Tower or Big Ben or any number of things, Great Wall of China. Okay. Not everybody can go to your farm.
Can go. So now, I think I would give you the credits to this, because I think we've been speaking on this for about if I'm not wrong, close to 2 years, right?
Yep, that's correct.
But agri-tourism, and it has been something that we've been working on ever since we discussed it, and it's something dear to my heart that I wish it would the vision would come to light, in the sense that I think anybody would travel out to anywhere on an expectation, knowing what they want to see, right? I
Yeah.
would want to go to, let's say, come to New York and I want to walk on Times Square and see what is there, right? The same way, if anybody want to go to Ghana or Africa, would want to connect to nature. Okay.
Yeah.
So the best way to connect to nature is to visit a farm.
Mm.
The best way to connect to nature at the best is to nature. It's plants, animals. That is the uniqueness of nature, and we want to connect more to those stuff. So since we've been discussing that, we've been trying to set up our farm, and also as we produce them as well, and we also want to set up to include the agri-tourism side of it, where we are trying to put up structures, advantage points on the farm, where we are trying to come up with ideas where people can come on the farm, learn and feel relaxed at the same time.
Right.
Learn and enjoy their experience connecting to nature, having a memorable time on the farm too. So we are putting up structures, as she said, that we can accommodate people on the farm, and we're coming up with mechanisms where people would get to have a feel of what they are there for. So perhaps they can go.
Hello?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
So they can plant their own food when they're on the farm. They can harvest their own food and eat the natural at the nature's best, right? So it will be a combination of an experience and relaxation too as well. So that's what we are looking at in the future. So we are putting up structures in place. So as you said, as I told you, transportation to the farm. So other things that we're looking at is transportation wise, where we know there's a stop point where a car can take you. So we'll make availability where we can continue the transportation from one spot to the other. Or let's say somebody want to visit a farm, we can make transportation to pick the person from the airport straight to the farm. Or we're also looking at having a little bit relaxed accommodation where people can be safe and sleep sound, and provide mechanisms where you can have, we were discussing the other day, where people can have yoga at the farm, where people can have to feel relaxed and enjoy their time at the farm, and also teach them the process of farming too as well.
No, that's great. I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for doing something like this, and I think a lot of it is ultimately is marketing and creating the package so that it's very clear for people, and creating those different opportunities. So a couple for irrigation, a couple for animals, a couple for produce. Um,
Mhm.
do you have people that you work with that are are good teaching chef, like people that can cook, that can prepare food, that can also teach others how to do that?
So currently we have one agric officer on the farm who is an extension agric officer who's been doing farming for that long. He's taught on farming and everything. He has great ideas in farming. He knows how animal husbandry, he knows planting, he knows everything about farming from beginning to the end. He knows the background of farming and everything. So he's an expert on farming, and we have that person permanent on the farm. So in situations like this, I think he'll be a right person to take tourists on the farm, show them how the process starts to finish too as well.
That's great. And that's one part we didn't really talk about, is the breeding side of things. There's also plenty of people around the world, and certainly students, that need to get certain experience, and it's very different when you have everything at your disposal. You know, if you have all the tools, all the equipment to do what you're trying to do. I think you learn more when you have to struggle a little bit. And granted, when you're taking care of animals, you don't want to struggle too much, or when you're taking care of food, you don't want to struggle too much. But I think that's an opportunity to have people come in that are specifically there to focus not just on the animals in terms of taking care of them, but also the breeding side, which is also a very tricky thing. So you mentioned sheep before. Are you raising them for cotton as well, or
Right.
not for wool?
No, so the breed in Africa, you can get a lot of wool from them.
Yeah, I didn't think so because
No,
I've seen them before, and I never thought to myself, oh, that would make a nice wool sweater. That doesn't.
no, no, we don't get so much wool from the sheep from Africa. I don't know how God did it, but I think because the weather is much more sunny, they don't need so much covering on their skin, so we don't get a lot of wool from them in Africa. So
Okay.
what we get from them is meat,
Yeah,
and milk, right? Milk for cheese and stuff. So we get milk and meat from the sheep.
now are you selling off the milk, or are you making cheeses on site?
So we've not started making cheese yet.
Aha.
So we're currently producing for meat.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think I've I love cheese, so I think it would be a neat opportunity to have a couple of people come in, and their opportunity is to create the beginnings of a cheese program on site, and the idea being that one person comes in, and then another person comes in, and another person comes in, so that there's
So
this
there's continuity. There's continuity.
right.
Yeah.
And then when one person is about to leave, that person comes in so that they can train them a little bit, and then they can continue on with what they're doing. So it's
Perfect.
again, lots of opportunity to do some different things. And I didn't think about the milk before.
Yeah.
And I mean, the meat is obvious, but I know that a lot of the meat around Ghana, at some of the places when I've talked to them, I know a lot of the poultry is coming from Brazil, or outside of Ghana. But the actual meat, I don't know so much about the meat and where it comes from. But you're able to sell off a lot of the meat.
So we sell to we have markets with the restaurants in Accra. We have markets in the restaurants almost around where we have the central region area too. So we sell most of our products to the market.
Okay. Now, are you selling the sheep as is, or are you butchering at the?
We have a slaughter section where we butcher and sell it out to
Okay.
the restaurants too as well, and to individuals who want to buy. We're looking at growing it into a market where we can produce more and have a larger market where we can sell often. But we are still growing gradually. We would get there.
Okay, great. That's really neat. And again, you have 60 acres. You're talking about getting maybe a little bit more acreage if possible.
Yes.
And I think that's the opportunity also, is to be very intentional about how you expand and where you put living quarters for visitors, for the people that would come in. And again, I think I showed you a picture of these great little outhouses that from Spain. It's amazing what you can do with very little if you're just intentional about it. And you don't have to waste a lot of water. You don't have to waste a lot of electricity. You can use a lot of the sunlight to do what you need to do. And that creates a very unique, special experience for people. I mean, I've never, yeah, I think I've never stayed in a hotel in Ghana, except for the Tumi hostel in Kumasi.
Okay. Yeah.
I've always just, you know, stayed in flats or what have you. And I think the benefit to that is that, you know, most hotels, you can't tell the difference between them. You know, most hotels, with some exceptions. I mean, I love my friends that work in hotels in Ghana. It just, for me, it doesn't make any sense to stay there. But especially in the United States, you go from one hotel in one city to another hotel in another city. You don't know where you are. You forget. I mean, if you just stand in the hotel, you don't know where you are because it doesn't have that flavor.
Yeah, the feel of being at home and relating, being
Right.
comfortable at home.
But I think you can create a really neat space, Michael, in terms of where people can lodge and where they can congregate, where they can cook together, and that would create a great experience. And the benefit of marketing to people around the world is that they're bringing money into the economy, not just to help your farm, but also to help Ghana, because that money goes into different pockets. Then you can afford certain things. You can hire people to do certain jobs. So that money, it's the multiplier effect. So that money gets distributed, which is great. And to a lot of people, you know, especially students at some of these programs, they're spending $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year in tuition.
Sure.
You know, so to spend a few $1,000s to come to Ghana and have a very unique experience, that's money that can go very, very far in Ghana, and they can get a lot out of it. I mean, I can't say enough about your farm and the potential that it could be for people. And every time it could get a little bit, it could change a little bit with everybody that comes in, because they could bring items, they could build the DIY solar program. You know, the lodging, the bringing in of mattresses and linens, or perhaps. I know two trips ago, 3 trips ago, I brought in a bunch of IKEA linens, just because. And I still have some over there, with the idea of creating something that would, from a decor perspective. But sometimes it's fun to do a clash of, you know, Ghanaian prints and then a little bit of, you know, something else. So, and again, the visitors that come in, they have, I talked about a little bit before, they have certain expectations. Not everybody can go right into a Ghanaian lifestyle like that.
Yeah.
And so if you can add a few little things here and there to make them more comfortable, because it reminds them of home, wherever that home is, whether it's Europe or North America or Asia, for instance. If you can put little elements, maybe they'll be more comfortable.
Yeah. So I must say our farm is widely open to any other person who wants to have a feel of farm life, and any other student who is perhaps into agriculture and want to connect more to what agriculture is and the feel of it. We are open to that, and we are open to the public at large. Anybody who is ready to have a feel of nature, we are open to. Yeah.
So let's talk next steps. You know, what are the next things that you need to do in order to be ready to bring people in?
So for now, what we need to do, the little that we need to do more, or what we have to place emphasis on, would be accommodation. Accommodation. So we are putting up structures, advantage points on the farm where people can stay. For transportation, I think we have a little van that can transport them to and fro on the farm to anywhere they want to go. So now we are working on accommodation. I'm sure by the end of the year, accommodations will be set for anybody or any group of people who want to stay on the farm. And also, we are coming out with programs, intensive programs, where we know we have a program outline where this is the things that you should expect. And by the end of your tour, and we can check it up and say that yes, it was rewarded, it was satisfying that you came on the farm.
It's great.
Uh-huh.
So, and the accommodations, I mean, obviously you and I can talk a little bit more. Are they going to be individual? Is it for a group?
So we are putting up structures for, let's say we're trying to put up structures, maybe a 3-bedroom at a spot, a 3-bedroom at a different location, a 3-bedroom at a different location. That's what we are looking at doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So maybe the animal team can be over here, the irrigation team can be here, the produce team can be here.
Perfect.
Which
And
is, I mean, they'll still be able to stack.
But when you're on the farm, issues like food wouldn't be a problem because we are planting. We are eating what we are planting on the farm. Right. So I think with food, we are sure of it. And we talk about lighting system. We are hoping the government would extend electricity to the farm as soon as possible. If not, would invest into solar panels, because we always have a degree of sunlight every day, so we can invest into solar panels where people are assured they would always have light.
Right.
And we want to provide an atmosphere where people who will be on the farm would feel very belonging. They'll feel they are in a community. They feel they are part of whatever is happening. So as you said, we can have teams doing their own thing, like putting up mud houses, where they can have their name customized on it. We're looking at people having an environment where they can go pick their own kind of food they want to eat at a very raw stage and prepare and eat. We're looking at an environment where there will be so much positive energy in the atmosphere. There's so much love. People can connect to the groups they came with in a very different atmosphere, not the usual kind of you wake up from your bed, you go to take a shower and you go to work, but where you would live very freely. So we can imagine an atmosphere where you wake up to see the birds flying over your head. You wake up to an environment where you see things at a very, very raw natural state, which is rare, which you don't see often. So I think if there's anything somebody would want to look at in the area of tourism, I think if you've not have a feel of nature at the best, I think you should visit the farm, and maybe you should visit our farm too as well.
Excellent. Well, we'll certainly keep talking, and I will work with you to talk further about the packaging of these trips and what that looks like. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you, what is the better data plan for where your farm is? Is it Tigo? Is it MTN? Or what works the best out there?
Okay, so I'm sure it will be MTN.
MTN.
Because most of the people on the farm use MTN, so I'm sure maybe that's the reason why they use MTN over there.
Yeah, that's what I use as well. So that works.
Yeah.
Because that's important too, and
oh yeah.
My approach is to make sure that when the visitors come in, maybe you go straight to MTN, get them all set up, and then go to the farm.
You can go. Yeah, and we'll try as much as possible. If we have visitors on the farm, we'll make availability of internet, so at least they can really get to connect to any other person they want to connect on using the internet too as well.
Yeah, it's a different thing when you're in Ghana, but my favorite is I just do the midnight bundles, and then I can download whatever I need, and I think there's value in not having too much internet access, because then you're distracted. Sometimes you need to disconnect to connect, which is something that I adopted from my work with Fireside Conference up in Canada. It's a place where there is really no internet, and so people had to talk to each other and they had to work together, and you know, if you're on the farm and you're there to really get into nature, and you don't want people just watching YouTube. Not that that's a bad thing. So, all right, well, good stuff. Thank you so much, Micheal. This has been good, and it was great to reconnect.
For your time too as well. I do appreciate and all the efforts you put into making agritourism possible for us too as well. We do appreciate a lot.
And I hope that those that watch this video hopefully have learned a little bit from your farm and your projects and all the things that you're working on, and hopefully they'll hear about the programs that are available, and like I said, we'll reconnect and we'll talk further about what that looks like. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and have a nice.
Be safe.
Be safe too. Bye. Bye.